Yeah. Okay. Jeremy, are you okay to lead us off into the green pastures?
Sure. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Hi, Jeremy.
Yeah, so Chris, I mean, how do you reflect on the series? Obviously, England's appeared to have shortcomings with both bat and ball, but at the end of the day, India were too good, weren't they? Ashwin and Patel, you know, with 59 wickets, they were just too strong on home soil, weren't they?
They were. I think that's probably a true reflection as well. You know, it was difficult. They made life very hard for us. I mean, hard to get first innings runs, which is something that we obviously try and pride ourselves on and something we're working hard towards. But they did made life very tough, and they outplayed us in their conditions. So, I mean, we've got to give a lot of credit to the Indians. They came back hard after that first test, and we expected them to, but they came back very hard. And like I said, certainly this last test outplayed us.
A lot's been said, Chris, about rotation and everything like that, but what lessons do England need to learn from this series, do you think?
I mean, it's the rotation system, as you've just mentioned. I mean, I'm happy with that. You look at the amount of cricket that we've played and the amount of cricket we've got in front of us. We've got to be proactive in looking after our players and making sure that we keep them as fresh as possible, so we can keep them going as long as possible as well. You know, when we talk about working his way to the Ashes, I want the squad to arrive there in fit form, both physically and mentally, to be honest. Because again, that's going to be a tough tour. We know that, and it's one that obviously we're prioritising. So I want to make sure that everybody arrives at that point in as good a place as possible. So we have to look after our players.
Some of the guys have had a tough time. Obviously, Johnny Bairstow, 28 runs in 4 innings with 3 ducks. I mean, where do you see his Test career after this series?
Well, I mean, it's a tough tour. We've got to sort of keep that in perspective as well. You know, I mean, it weren't only Johnny that struggled on this tour. So I think a little bit of perspective is very important around that. And obviously, we regroup when we get back to England. You know, I mean, there'll be some county cricket being played where various, I mean, some of the young batsmen can go play in that and sort of build the confidence. And then we will go from there, really.
Mm. Can you speak to about Dom Bess, who had a really tough Test match? Of course, some people, you know, writing him off already. What would you say about Dom Bess?
I think it's unfair to write him off. I mean, it's not long ago he helped us win 3 Test matches. So, you know, I mean, I think, again, perspective there. You know, I mean, he is, to a certain extent, learning on the job in Test cricket. And, you know, I mean, up till now, he's done a fantastic job for us. So I think we need to support him. You know, I mean, wrap a lot of support around him. And help him come back, really, because the one thing he does do, he tries 100% every time he's on that field, whether we're bat, ball, or in the field. So, you know what I mean, for us, he's a great asset, and we'll support him.
Ben Foakes had to wait a couple of years before playing Test cricket on this tour. What about him, and what would you say about his performance on this tour? Did he prove that he is England's best keeper with the gloves?
Well, I think he's certainly, you know, I mean, put a show on behind the stumps for us. You know, I mean, we're blessed in that we've got a couple of very good top cricketers there now, obviously with Joss and with Ben. And again, we try to develop a larger squad that can cope with all situations, really. You know, I mean, mainly the amount of cricket that's in front of us as well, and obviously keeping people in bubble life, as we talk about. So, you know, I mean, the larger the group we can build, strong group, you know, I mean, the better place we'll be in.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Scott Taylor, please.
Hey, Chris, I just want to look back before we look forward. And I spoke to you last week about how big a learning curve this is for this young group of players. But looking back, probably now, is this experience something they perhaps needed in order to sort of enhance their Test careers?
I think so. I mean, it's not... When you're sort of heading somewhere, there's always going to be a few bumps in the road. And I think the experience that they'll gain from this will be really valuable down the line. I think, you know, I mean, the fact that when they do get on flat wickets, I'm hoping it makes them really greedy at score runs and go on and score those, I mean, big individual runs, but big partnerships as well, and help us to get those big first innings runs. You know, I mean, it's going to hurt for a while, and obviously they'll be reflecting. There'll be some talking going on between the players and with the various coaches, but hopefully they'll pull the positives out of it and learn from them, and then that will make them stronger moving forward.
Sorry, and just quickly as well about Dom. I know you spoke to Jeremy there about Dom, but how do you ensure that the stars don't go deeper than just a couple of bad test matches? Just behind the column inches, behind what's said in the media, behind what's said on TV, there is a young 23-year-old man in there.
There is, and we've got to look after him. He's very much part of this group. We'll make sure that he gets every resource that we've got behind him. We'll make sure that we stay in touch. And obviously my telephone's on 24/7 for him, which he knows if he ever wants to chat. But I think, go back, bit of county cricket, get some wickets under his belt, the confidence will come back. We know he's a good bowler, and it doesn't always go our way. I've experienced that as a player myself. But he is strong and he will bounce back from this.
And cricket's obviously a fast-moving game. You've now got 5 T20s and 3 ODIs against India with this exciting white ball squad. It doesn't get any better from a coach's perspective, does it?
No, it's obviously a very quick transition between the two. So you do. Obviously I've got to get my head around the white ball stuff now. The lads are here. They're full of energy. They're raring to go. And they're a very exciting group. We're not only very good, but very exciting, and we'll push the boundaries. They will be coming hard this series. So I'm looking forward to watching them.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Scott.
Jonathan Agnew, please.
Yeah, Chris, thanks. Can we just distinguish the difference between rotation and bubble fatigue and rest? Because I think there are two separate issues here, aren't there? There's the rotation of players like Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad, the fast bowlers to keep them fresh for Australia. But there's this other issue, which I think has been talked about a lot in this last series, about those who have been released from bubble life to go home for a break. Now, do you think that particular aspect was handled well? Do you think it was handled with enough flexibility rather than just telling players when they were going to be going home in advance? Because clearly there were stages in this series where you would like to have had a player playing who had done well in the last game maybe, but was going home. So there is clearly a difference between those two things.
There is, but they're clearly linked as well. We do need to keep them fresh and firing because the test matches do come thick and fast in difficult conditions, especially here. But equally, to keep the players mentally fresh is very important as well, because you want them, when they're out on the park, you want them to be concentrating on the cricket in front of them. You want them to be happy. You want to be settled. And sometimes that means seeing your family. And it's difficult, and the families want to see, the dads, the husbands, or whoever it is as well, So it's, I think that we've done it to the best of our ability. I think it's worked. It's certainly something we'll reflect on as well, obviously, after this tour, to make sure that we are getting things right. Is there anything we can learn from it? And obviously try and do things as well as possible moving forward as well. But I think it's, as I said earlier, we look at the amount of cricket we've already played, and you look at the amount of cricket we've got in front of us, then we have to be proactive in looking after our players, because I don't think it's acceptable to push somebody into a break and then try and pick them up then. I think, we've got to be proactive and make sure that we make the intervention before anybody does break, and we can get them back in an England shirt quicker. So
break in a sort of psychological way. But I just want to clarify this. The going home seems to be therefore more family driven. Is that right, than bubble life? Because I'd imagine that life in the Indian hotels on this trip, once you'd done your quarantine, wouldn't actually have been that much different. And I'm guessing, because I'm not there, you'd have to tell me, but wouldn't actually, I don't think, have been that much different to a normal tour of that part of the world, would it? You don't go wandering down the high street to find a restaurant to eat in the evenings in Ahmedabad. It is very hotel driven. So it was more an opportunity for family life rather than bubble fatigue, if you like.
Well, again, one, in my eyes, one is hand in hand with the other. But one thing that we haven't got here is a choice to be able to go out. In days gone by, you may have chosen not to go out, but at the moment, we haven't got a choice. And we are stuck in the hotel, between the hotel and the ground. But equally, everybody misses their family. The families miss the players that are here. And I think it's important. But when there's no family time and there's no, we can't get the families to the players as we normally would. I think it's important that we do our very best to get the players back to the family and use that as a family time, because it's, again, it's from a well-being point of view, it's so important that these players stay connected with their families.
I didn't speak to Joe Root yesterday after the game, unfortunately, but he accepted that the selection for the third test was wrong. I didn't hear anything about the selection for that last Test match and having so few quick bowlers in there when he could, I think, have done with another one, and with Ben Stokes not being very well. I mean, is that something that you would say was correct now, that you didn't go in with a strong enough seam attack?
I think hindsight's wonderful. If you'd have asked me in the first innings, I was grateful for the extra batsman, and then obviously when we bowled, you'd have been grateful for an extra bowler. So it was a rock and a hard spot, that one, really. I mean, again, we watched them prepare the wicket. They prepared it very similar to they did, the previous one that span a lot, and we expected it to spin more than it did. Hence the combination we went in with. I mean, and equally, if you look, India only played 2 seamers as well. You know what I mean? So I mean, hindsight's wonderful, isn't it?
Of course. And just the last one from me, if I can. I mean, I'm looking at all the names on the screen here in front of me. I don't think I saw any of us suggest before a ball was bowled that England would win this series in India, and that actually probably you'd lose quite heavily. Given that it is 3-1, I just wonder realistically how much damage, if that's the right word, or how much jolting off course realistically this series has done for your preparations, as you said, for that key series in Australia coming up. I mean, will it alter anything?
It won't alter, our outlook on what we're trying to achieve now. Again, it'll just go down to an experience and help galvanise the side, really. We've got some very fine young players in that side. Crawley's, your Sibley's, your Pope, obviously Lawrence, who's come in. And I think the experience and seeing these conditions and, playing in different parts of the world will, in the long run, do them a world of good. And, we could see them reap the rewards 2 years down the line. Hopefully we see them reap the rewards in Australia and help us win the Ashes there. But I think the experience, although it will hurt, none of us like losing a series or anything like that. But I think we will reap the rewards down the line of the experience I've picked up. And the next time I come onto these sort of wickets, then the sort of 4 round, really.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Murgus.
Thanks, Agus.
Ali Martin, please.
Hi, Chris. I'm just wondering if you could sort of just clarify what's happening with Jofra Archer. He played the first Test. He missed the second one because of an elbow injury. He's obviously had problems in that area of his body before. He came back and bowled just 5 overs in the third Test, and then the same injury sees him miss out again. So, should supporters be concerned about his hardiness for Test cricket?
I wouldn't say concerned, no. Obviously, his elbow did flare up a little bit. The medical staff are managing that at the moment. And obviously, we'll monitor his progress. And the medical staff are talking about how we deal with this long term.
Is it because obviously when he bowls, there is a degree of hyperextension with his elbow there. So could it become an issue where he's going to be limited in how many overs he can bowl? Or
it's not something that I'd really go out there and predict. But we'll find out in the course of time, that won't it? But I think the important thing certainly for me at the moment, is making sure that Jofra gets, again, every resource around him that we can provide to make sure that he does have a long and successful Test career.
Cool. And can I? So just at the start, you kind of pretty much said that the Ashes is the priority this year, certainly for the Test team. Do you sort of worry that people are going to look at it and think, well, a Test series in India, how has that sort of become second fiddle? That's one of the 2 holy grails in terms of away tours, isn't it?
Well, no one took this series lightly, I can promise you that. Absolutely not. We came here wanting to win this. And we went hard in that first Test and won it. And then India came back hard in the last 3 Tests. And it's a very difficult place to come here and win, as we've seen time and time again. History tells us that. Not just for England, but for other countries as well. But don't for 1 minute think that we didn't take we took this series lightly, because we didn't. We wanted to come here and win, but we knew it was going to be tough.
Should the rotation policy really be judged at the end of, say this time next year?
Well, I think we've got to, again, we have to look after our players, but equally as well, we'll be constantly monitoring it and making sure that we're doing it to the best of our ability as well, which obviously keeps them fit, fresh, healthy, and on the park. And make sure that we're trying to get it right. So we're constantly talking about it, and trying to make sure that we're doing it to the best of our ability.
Cool, thanks.
Thanks, Alan.
Paul Newman, please.
Hi, Chris. Sorry to mention the IPL again, but could you just clarify the situation with the New Zealand tests? the players who are involved in the whole of the IPL, were they ruled out of those tests? We saw today that the IPL final has been moved forward to May 30th. Does that make a difference, or are you planning without them?
No, I mean, obviously we haven't looked at selection or anything like that for the test matches yet. But it's no, I mean, it's for me. I mean, playing for your country is a big thing.
But they are allowed to stay for the whole IPL as it stands.
It's difficult to change anything. Yeah, so they'll be staying for the whole IPL as it stands at the moment. Yes.
When would they need to be back in the country, do you think, to be in contention for that first test on June the 2nd?
Oh, listen, we'll be looking at the test series and working his way backwards and seeing what preparation time we need and everything. So, I mean, that's I mean, we haven't done that as much at this time, but it's something we will be doing.
Okay, Chris. And finally, can I just follow up what Ali was saying about Jofra? Is he a day out for the white ball matches at this stage?
He's trained today with the white ball squad out of the ground. He got through training, so again we'll be monitoring the situation. But he got through training today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Chris Stocks, please.
Hi, Chris. Just to follow up on Paul's point about the sort of the test this summer. I don't want to ask you specifically about the New Zealand series, but is it safe to say that this policy of rotation is going to continue into the English summer?
Well, it's certainly something we have to be, aware of, and something that we have to consider, because we don't know what the landscape's going to look like from a COVID point of view yet, do we? I know things are supposed to slowly opening up, but we've got to be guided a little bit by the medical advice and what's happening in the country. But it's certainly something that we're probably going to have around.
And on the Ashes, you say it's a priority. I mean, in this series, people have looked at the rest and rotation and players missing sort of test matches, especially Butler, the last 3. Is it in your mind that you will have your strongest available 11 for all 5 of those Ashes tests?
We're trying to grow a group of players here, but we can put a strong side out all the time. But we have to again be aware that we have to look after our players. There is a whole load of cricket coming up this summer. Then we'll very quickly disappear abroad once our summer is finished. So we've got to make sure we're proactively looking after our players.
But so players could be flying home from the Ashes sort of midway or whatever, like they have on this tour?
Well, we've got to be proactive in looking after them. So it's certainly something we may have to look at, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dean Wilson, please.
Yeah, hi, Chris. You mentioned when you're heading somewhere, there's always going to be the odd bump in the road. Where do you think this test team is actually heading, and has this result perhaps given you an indication of just how far the journey now looks?
No, I think this testing, the vision that Joe and I have got is that we become world number 1. Not only we do that, but we stay there. And I think, we've got the talent in there to do that. We've got a very good mix of experience and youth in there. And, not everything's going to go our way. We know that, but equally, we have won, 6 test matches in a row. And, been successful in the subcontinent as well. It's not always going to go our way, but we know that. We know that we're not the finished article. And we knew India were going to be a very tough side to beat in their own backyard. But I think, as I said earlier, the experiences that the lads have got throughout this tour will stand them in good stead, and we'll hopefully see the rewards of that further down the line.
And just a further point on Jofra, you said that the medical staff are looking into sort of long-term solutions. I presume that involves a spot of surgery at some point. Are you trying to work out when that might need to happen and whether you can put it off until after the Ashes?
Well, I'm not sure surgery's come up yet. But let's now be guided by the medics on that.
In terms of his workload going forward, then you're going to have to make some decisions. Clearly, you already are making decisions on everyone's workload. But do you see his priority over the course of the summer to play more red ball cricket than white, or more white ball cricket than red?
Listen, I'll be guided by the medics. We've got to see where we end up first with him, and once we've decided the course of action that we take with Jofra, we'll be guided from there. But as I said earlier, I want Jofra to be fit for all forms of cricket. So I want him to have a long, successful Test career.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Two more now, please. George DeBell and John Etheridge. Thank you.
G'day, Chris.
Hi, George.
Are the training facilities that you have ahead of the T20 series, are they adequate, particularly for those players who are coming out of the English winter and haven't had a lot of training time?
Well, I mean, listen, the training facilities are the same for both sides. You know what I mean? And whatever we get, we'll work on and we'll work around it. And what we did have today was a very good indoor school as well. So we've got facilities to make things work.
Are they the same for both sides? I thought India had different nets.
There's a big block of nets there, and we get moved between them to try and keep the wickets as fresh as possible.
Okay, thank you.
But essentially, we're all in the same net space.
Okay, thanks.
John Etheridge, please.
Chris, hi.
Hi,
just on the rotation, are you going to have a break at any stage?
Not this tour, no. So, at some point, obviously, I will look at that. So again, you know, I mean, I see that as an opportunity to let one of the assistant coaches lead as well. It's not happened on this trip, but it's certainly something we'll be looking at in the future. Yeah.
Just from memory, since you've taken the job, had a bit of a break. You came home from New Zealand. That was a sort of family bereavement, I think, wasn't it? So you've not actually missed anything at all apart from that, have you?
Well, I mean, obviously with having the white ball and the red ball running side by side at times last year. Obviously, I missed some white ball cricket, and equally, both my assistants picked up, you know, I mean, sort of leadership roles within that as well. And I think was it a T20 against Pakistan? So, you know, I mean, the assistant coaches have had leadership opportunity, and we'll continue to try and get them that.
Generally, does your tank feel pretty full still?
No, I'm fine. I'm happy. You know, I mean, I'm obviously living the dream. Really, England head coach. It's brilliant. So, you know, I mean, I'm fine. But if at any stage I do feel I need a break, then I'm quite happy to take one.
And you'll go to Ashley, I suppose, if that was the case, would you?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, Ash and I speak all the time anyway. In close contact. But I mean, if I felt I did need a break, I'll go speak to Ash. You know, I've got two very able assistant coaches and a good group of coaches around them too that are helping. So I know the team will be in safe hands.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, everyone. Take care, and I'll be in touch again regarding tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers.